It's day 18. We're going to talk about calories. I know it's a very fun topic, but I'm going to make it interesting, I promise. When I was just out of elementary school, I was already severely obese. Very, very, very obese. And I was very short. I was like 4'10" or so. By the time I graduated high school, I was like 5'4", very short, and I was nearly 300 pounds. The most I weighed myself at was around 292. I remember writing it down, taking a picture, and making it my phone background. In the beginning, if you are severely overweight, if you need to lose 80, 100 pounds, I didn't count calories. I simply removed things. And I would advise, if you were that heavy, to simply remove things. Realistically, you've done something to make yourself that big, and you can probably take something away. For me, at that size, at that age, it was very basic. It was soda. It was fast food. I stopped drinking soda. I stopped eating fast food, and I began to lose weight. I didn't weigh myself often. I didn't do anything like that. And I had peaks and valleys. I fluctuated. I always struggled to count calories because realistically, I think at that time it was harder to ascertain the appropriate information for weight loss. There was, of course, no subculture of fitness gurus and nutritionists and doctors that are effectively, they proliferate every form of media now. That didn't exist back then to the extent that it does now. So yeah, it goes without saying that this is not like the most engaging topic. And I understand that counting calories can be so exhausting and really frustrating, but I want to show you what it's like to have done it for such a long time. And I also want to provide you with a bit of sort of backstory around certain things, and also to try and give you whatever little bits of advice that I've really gathered and taken for myself without sort of really attacking you with the basics, which I'm sure you've had enough of, just if you are someone that's been trying to work on yourself. And if you are not losing weight, or all of this is just sort of like something that you're watching for a completely different reason, this stuff is interesting. I do think it's interesting from the standpoint of someone that doesn't count calories, has never done it, how peculiar it is to look at food in this way, and how peculiar it is to have such a constant, high percentage amount of your CPU kind of taking up thought about food. It's very bizarre. And I know it's bizarre because I've been healthy enough to where I simply didn't do those things. Granted, it clearly didn't last. So first thing I wanted to show, which I thought would be really interesting, is what we have here is effectively my app, Evernote. It's like a big count, not mine. It's a big app. It's kind of like a series of notebooks. But what's important is that if I type in the word record here to my old calorie lists, you find pretty quickly this is quite old. This is a food record from May 2019. So I've been counting calories for a very long time. I haven't been using this for longer than 6 years. So this is kind of where my current record exists. I used to write down my calories in a little notebook. I'm not going to go looking for those. But if you see here, I was clearly quite focused at this time. And I weighed in, you see I say May 19th, 190. Yup, 190. I was utterly confounded at the idea that I had gotten myself back up to 190. Little did I know what would come. So from here, between May 19th and July 19th, I lost around 20 pounds. You could actually see every single thing I ate within that time period, beginning in May. Obviously, this is very loose. I say things that are not very specific. I don't have a macro breakdown at this time period. I never focused on protein or carbs. I would always just try to eat X amount of calories. I also would have cheat days, pretty heavy cheat days. I was very active during this time period as well. So this is just a sort of what it looks like if you really do it. And I have a lot of really interesting rules here that I think are kind of funny to look back on, and a lot of ridiculous things that I said. The only calories you can drink is some booze. Red wine has benefits, but fuck red wine, I said. 6 years ago, I had a problem with red wine, it seems. The booze did not work out in the end, and it is a large reason why I ended up gaining quite a bit of weight back. Anyway, I thought this was an interesting thing to just kind of take a gander at. These things that I have here, rules, no white carbs, no fruit, no sugar, no dairy, these are sort of vaguely connected to a certain eating pattern that you would, I guess, describe as a slow carb eating. It's like, if you look up Tim Ferriss, something he did a long time ago, it can work. But ultimately, every single dietary system that you will run into is a reshapen form of restricted eating that will maybe fit you. It is all the same thing at the end of the day, though. It's about eating X amount of calories without losing your mind, and thus losing Y amount of weight over a period of time. That's all it ever is. Restricted eating, fasting, hyper-specific diets, they are all doing the same thing in principle. That is an objective truth. They are all trying to find a way to make it so you're eating less and you don't lose your mind whilst eating less. One more thing I was going to cut. One more thing. I see here truths. I do cute things like this sometimes. Do I want pleasure or do I want enjoyment? I've discussed this on the channel before. I've found that this little mental model has been a great benefit to me, and it still is. I ask myself often, do I want pleasure, do I want enjoyment, or is this thing I'm doing for pleasure or for enjoyment? To create an example, if my wife, it's her birthday and she's really excited to go out to eat, and I go out to eat with her, I am probably not going to get a salad. Probably just going to enjoy going to eat with her because it's a great joy to share that with my wife. Pleasure is you're standing in front of the fridge in the middle of the night and there's a cookie in there or whatever, and you go, oh, I could eat that. It would taste so good if I ate that. That's pleasure. And you do have the capacity to distinguish between the two. My weight is the engine of my social confidence. This is just true. It may not be true for everyone. It's most certainly true for me. I am an incredibly confident person in my daily life, but the heavier I am, the more I like to hide under my bed. And it has dramatic effects on your life. It has a dramatic effect on the paths you choose, the things you'll say yes and no to. These things really affect you. They really matter. And I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but there are people that the stuff of their life for decades consists of gaining and losing, or trying to gain or trying to lose 20 to 40 pounds. It's the most important thing in their life, trying to reach this idealized version of themselves. That's something different to an extent, but also it is the trap of focusing on all these things so much, where you really will utilize all of these. You'll take all of these different forms of neurosis that are built around eating, and you will end up kind of locking yourself in place, where you're always sort of building up towards this you that does do this you that does do that. I don't know how well that will end, but it is true. I am more social when I feel better about the way I am physically, and being more social leads to more opportunities. That is simply true. I am more confident, I am more active, I'm spending less time thinking about the way I look, thinking about the way I'm dressed, thinking about what I should be, what I'm not. So, every carb goes to my double chin. I think that's just something I wrote because it's funny. Every gram of sugar goes to my aorta. Again, just trying to make myself laugh. And then the rationalization is a lie. Another mental model I've always used, and it is absolutely true. Every time you find yourself rationalizing behavior, you are beginning a very human process, which is effectively lying to yourself. Rationalizations are always a lie. Refuse to argue with yourself. Can't tell you how to get there, but it is an important thing to keep in mind. Ask yourself, am I really arguing with myself about chips right now? What am I doing? Anyway, if you don't do it every day, what's the point? I believe this was me trying to get away from cheat meals and get away from sneaking things in or going, I might as well eat this, or I might as well eat that. As I've mentioned before, I live with a very healthy person who, for all intents and purposes, eats what she wants when she wants and does very well for herself, my wife. So it's very easy for me to have a bit of this and a bit of that because we're always eating very separate meals. But you can't do that. These things will add up, and that's how you end up with people that go, I swear I eat the right amount of calories every day, but it's just nothing's changing. It's because you're having more of those moments than you think you are. Let's get away from this. I just thought it would be interesting to show. There's really only one thing that you need to know. There's really only one thing that's of the utmost absolute importance. And it's unfortunate, it's annoying, but the reality is you need to have a near exact understanding of what your deficit should be. My advice is to find a healthy amount that does not include adding a deficit or adding calories from your activity. I find that those added variables just make things more confusing, and you will inevitably end up in a position where things take more time than they should. You shouldn't be messing with your calories just because you ride your bike to work and you ride your bike back. Just let it all go in and work from there. After finding that number, it's personal preference. There's so much that comes down to the individual. Now, there are some universal truths or near universal truths. Carbs and sugars are simply not satiating. They're not. Liquid calories are obviously not satiating at all either. Protein also isn't a one-size answer. If you have 70 grams of protein from a whey protein shake that you mix with water, that is a decent amount of calories, a lot of protein, but you will be hungry quickly because you've effectively drank what are like the most digestible proteins possible. And within an hour, 2 hours, you won't be hungry anymore, or you will be hungry rather. The one thing protein shakes do really to curb your appetite is kind of not feel very good when you drink them, because they kind of upset a lot of people's stomachs. And then you have to ask yourself, and again, this is where personal preference comes in, what makes you hungry? What is guaranteed to spin you into eating other things? Are you someone that eats late at night? Are you someone that is hungry the moment you wake up? Do you sort of need to feel full? I'll use my own self now for an example. I really like to feel like I've eaten. I don't want when I'm counting calories throughout my life, the moments where I've been counting calories and it was the hardest was because I ended up in a position where the amount of calories I was eating, my dinner would always be, almost carbless. It would be like a little bit of greens and a little bit of protein, and I'd go, well, this sucks. So I like to have a dinner that is between like 700 and 1,000 calories, which is the lion's share of my calories. But it does make me feel like I ate food. Also, I'm well aware that there are things that just spur hunger, and it will likely spur hunger for you as well. If you are trying to find a way to make a cookie last very long, or have a bag of chips and eat it over the course of a week as opposed to in 2 days, I believe that you are setting yourself up for failure. I know that there are some people that can manage it better than others, but why not tip the scales? Everything in life you want to try and tip the chances in your favor, which is all these things can do. Every single video you see, every single group of top tier foods to eat to curb hunger, top 10 tips to lose weight, how to make calories not painful, they're all doing the same thing. They're all trying to put you so that you position yourself in such a way that it isn't utterly devastating to count your calories and undereat and lose weight, and not have you spiral into a series of heavy eating and not eating and heavy eating and not eating. I believe that if you have found the proper deficit and you are familiar with your own eating habits and what triggers you and what does not, you should very rarely be very hungry, especially in the beginning of a diet, especially in the middle of the diet. Towards the end, for example, let's go a little bit into my future, and I weigh 180 pounds, and I want to lose another, it's hard to even comprehend, 40 to 50 pounds, right? There will come a time in that zone where I will simply not be losing much weight anymore because my body will have become so acclimated to 1,600 calories. It's going to happen. And I will have to go down, and I will go down to 1,200 or so calories, and that's very low. I will have to play my cards very well every day to not get extremely hungry. And I probably will inevitably end up having really bizarre cravings for things that I otherwise wouldn't really want. That is when things like cheat meals or refeeds or cheat days may become beneficial to you, but they're only beneficial in the sense that they are psychologically a reprieve. They do not have much physical benefit from what I understand. The idea that you hit a plateau and when you eat a bunch more food, suddenly you lost a ton of weight, it doesn't matter. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Ultimately, the only true certainty that comes along with a cheat day or a cheat meal is that you get to chill out. You get to relax your head. And these things should work for you. But of course, you have to know yourself and be prepared for the potential that that cheat meal becomes a cheat weekend. And by extension of that, it's, it's the last weekend of the month, and I've got like 3 more days, and then it's the next month, so I'll just make it next month, I'll restart. Now, where are we going? Where are we heading? You know where we're going. You know what's going to happen next. That's what you have to be careful for. I know this has been a little disjointed, but I wanted to discuss calories in a more conversational tone than I generally see on the internet. This is not the end of the world. It is not the worst thing you'll ever do. It's not the worst thing to ever happen to you. It's not the biggest deal. It's not the hardest thing. Counting calories is relatively simple. But you have to discover and understand your own personality and your own habits and your own failure points and your own rationalizations, and you have to work all of those into your diet, which is why it's so hard to effectively build a diet plan for someone or to help someone. It's why when you download or pay for someone's PDF on what you should eat, it probably won't help you that much, because it's so up to you and it's so specific to you. Calories in, calories out. Find your deficit. I'm sure you know how. You do need me to tell you how to go Google what is my total daily expenditure, and then you do a subtraction based off your height and weight. The only advice, again, I have for you there is not to count in. Don't tell them you're active because you go to work 5 days a week. Just take the low number and work with it. Do your measurements, find out how much you lose in a week, go from there. This is what you need to do. And it does not need to be viciously, mind-meltingly difficult. It is a bit embarrassing, you know, and it can be tough to be around normal people that don't count their calories when you are super self-conscious about that kind of thing and you want to socialize or you want to do these things. Look, realistically, it's harder to go out to dinner. And more often than not, you should probably dodge the dinner. Again, that's when it comes in. It's helpful to ask yourself, will it be pleasurable or will it be joyful? Am I going to my buddy's house to have 11 beers and a bunch of bullshit food for the 9th time in the past 2 months? Is that really joy? I don't know anymore. I don't think so. Those things really, they're at best in small measure. Another good thing to ask yourself is also, where along this explanation of how to lose weight through calories, which part is angering you? Where you go, oh, I have to do that. This will bother me or that will bother me. Find out where that is, because you will learn a lot from those things. You know, it's not a new bit of wisdom to say that the things that make you angry or make you scared or make you frustrated are in fact guides. They are the Sherpas to you comprehending yourself. And to finish out, you don't have to count calories forever. I know that I am not, in my current state, the best example of that truth. However, it's important to keep in mind that the reason that I regained a lot of weight and became so fat again is not because I stopped counting calories. I was counting calories when I gained the weight back. It's because certain things happened in my life. I handled them in a certain way. Years went by. I allowed myself to bury my own head. I started drinking more than I should. I started doing a lot of things I shouldn't. And I lost sense of where I was or why, and every day, you know, I'd open my eyes and not be sure what room I was in. I was counting calories all along the way, so it's not that. In fact, I didn't count calories, and I was very healthy. Between 2016, 2018, I didn't count calories at all. I lived outside the country. And I learned a lot about why I didn't need to count calories out there. A, it was effectively impossible. You're eating a scorpion, and what are you going to ask the woman in Hakka Chinese how many calories are in the scorpion you're eating? I mean, that's absurd. That's an extremely anomalous occasion, but still. I found that I never really overate, or to such an extent, because my tendency to eat an unhealthy amount generally comes from situations where my life and my social life are overly stable to a point where I am sort of not only bored but also kind of frustrated with my own stuckness. So when I was out of the country for many years, I gained a few pounds and I lost a few pounds and I gained a few pounds, but nothing abnormal, nothing insane. And I was never healthier psychologically. Even more important, I'm just taking from that and moving on. Your environment is critical. Your environment is so critical. And I don't want to speak forever about this, but it goes without saying, if you live in a house where there are chips everywhere, you're going to eat chips at some point. If you live in a house where you have a very uncomfortable or unsafe personal life, it will be very difficult to grow yourself or to make dramatic changes. I find and I've found that most people that have revolutionized their own being, that generally comes with a dramatic shift in environment that kind of spurred on that change. Now, don't blame your environment. Take an honest measure of how much control you have over yourself and your environment. But remember that, yes, environment matters quite a bit. And remove yourself from what you can, and remove things from your area that you can remove. So that's that. That's today. That's today. I found this old, page of my calories from 6 years ago, and I found it very fascinating. So I just started to talk about it. It's an interesting journey to go on. And it is, in the end, unfortunately, an incredible waste of time to constantly be thinking about calories and what you eat and what you don't eat. But you have to accept that there are certain things that you just have to have a greater control over than other people. That's just the way it is, and it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. I have friends that, if they're near a medicine cabinet in a bathroom in a strange house, they might have a very bad night. So I'll take, occasionally overeating or being too drawn towards extremely delicious foods. Today's video, a little bit on calories. Day 18. Day 18, a good day.